Welcome back to the Movement for Life podcast. My name is Kolby Krystofik. I am your host. This is the podcast that we talk about ways to keep us moving throughout our life. Today is going to be another fun episode. I'm a little bit inspired. This is coming out on Thursday, September 12th. It's being recorded on Wednesday, September 11th, and we are going to talk about some sailing. This Wednesday is my last day of the 22-week sailing season. We have been racing in wet Wednesdays on my boat for the past 22 weeks, and it's coming to a close, and I've actually been inspired by one of our members here at the gym to take some interest in watching America's Cup for 2024. So I want to talk more about some sailing season stuff, and I want to talk about some America's Cup stuff. But before I do, you know how we started. We talk about some ways that we stay active in the past week. In the past week, I did 1.5 CrossFit workouts. I went and coached in Northern California. I only did one run. It was everybody who was present anywhere in California knew it was a heat wave. So it was very hot in Northern California in Granite Bay, where this competition was being held. Did a run in the middle of the afternoon, like 3 to 4 o'clock in the afternoon. Very hot. So sympathy for all of the athletes that competed that weekend. It's been cooling off, and I got to play some pickleball this week as well. And I got to sail last week as well. So still staying active, getting back into some CrossFit, still hitting my minimum 2 days a week. Love to jump that to 3 days a week, get back into some more and more training while keeping things fun. I always want to hear what you guys are doing as well. Tell me what you're doing to stay active. What, are you doing CrossFit? Are you doing hiking? Are you doing softball? Ooh, that's going to be fun. Softball season starts next week. Sailing season ends, softball season starts. Tell us what you're doing to stay active. Let's jump right into this. This is going to be a fun little episode. Thank you, Scott, for inspiring this. I'll get to talk a little bit about some of the really, really cool stuff with the America's Cup. Hopefully inspire you to watch it a little bit as well. It started in August, so it's been going on for a little while. But the biggest matches are going to happen from October 12th to the 21st. The matches started maybe about a week ago on August 29th. So we'll get more to that in just a second. But sailing season, what is that for me? If you don't know, been living on sailboats since 2019 in Ventura Harbor. Started out with a Catalina 30, which is a 30-foot monohull sailboat. And one of the things that I wanted was, if I was going to live on a sailboat, I also had to be able to use that sailboat. So I had been learning how to crew in wet Wednesdays under another captain in Marina Del Rey since 2015. So I've been racing seasons in 2015, 2016, 2017, 2018. So 4 years of racing. It was a lot of fun. Learned so much. John Staff was the captain that we were racing with. An extremely knowledgeable racer, very well known in the racing world as well. Very, very nice guy, amazing family. So grateful to be able to have learned under him. In 2019, we got our own boat, that 1983 Catalina 30. Very fun. It had some racing sails on it, some carbon fiber inlays on that head sail, which is the sail that's in front. and then almost a brand new mainsail, which is the sail in the middle. Learning how to sail that boat was so much different than sailing on a fast racing boat. The first year and a half, the sailing was extremely conservative because it was also a home. So if anything happened, if anything broke, if anything went wrong, that also meant there was problems with our home. So being very, very conservative with our racing, we would go out and do day sails, night cruises, a couple of islands trips during and through COVID, which was a lot of fun. But a Catalina 30 was a fairly small boat, great for one person, but feeling like needed to do a little bit of upgrading. I feel like that always happens when you have boats. So ended up in 2021, I believe, 2 years into that, getting a Catalina 400, a 1996 Catalina 400, which is a 40-foot Catalina sailboat, same monohull. This one has a freestanding mast and a head sail. A freestanding mast just means that there is nothing supporting the big beam in the middle. It is supporting itself. It's kind of an untraditional type of sailboat. Most sailboats have standing rigging and running rigging that help keep that mast and the sails balanced. This one does not. For the past 2 years, getting into sailing, for the past 2 years, I have participated in Ventura Yacht Club's Wet Wednesday racing. On Wednesday evenings, we take the boat out. We leave the dock at about 5:30. We get there about 5 and we prepare the boat. So we rig up all of the sails. We get the lines ready and set up around the winches. We secure everything downstairs. We take all the covers off of everything so that it's ready to sail. Then we take off at 5:30 and we take out of the channel entrance in Ventura Harbor. And then once we get out of the channel harbor, we typically take a crew of 4 to 8 people with us. And everybody's got a job. Some of the jobs are as follows on our boat. We have a helmsman, which is the person who drives the boat. We have a navigator, a person who is looking at the maps, looking at the committee boat to figure out what mark or what course we're going to be sailing. They're also going to be looking for the buoys that we're going to be rounding. Then we have a bowman who is in charge of everything at the bow of the boat. That means hoisting and lowering sails, a mainsail, a head sail. It means making sure that any of the lines around the mast are free and nothing is being caught. It also means when we are rounding the mark and we're going downwind, they also get to hold, because we're in a cruising class, not a spinnaker class. We don't have a spinnaker, but when we go downwind, we hold a boat hook out on the head sail so that we can get a wing on wing going downwind. So the bowman is also in charge of that. Then we have trimmers in the back. We have a mainsail trimmer and a head sail, 2 head sail trimmers. The head sail is called a jib. So typically we have 2 people, 1 on each side, that's going to trim when we tack back and forth. One of those people are typically also going to be working on the traveler. And the traveler is going to be not the trimming of the sail, but the angle of the sail, the main sail. So one of those guys is also moving that as well. And then we have a couple of people who can be auxiliary. An auxiliary is going to be hoisting and lowering mainsail when it's needed. It's going to be taking care of the backstays on our boat because there is no rigging that's holding the mast. We have running rigging that we can tighten and loosen to hold the mast a little bit more stable while we're underway. And those need to be adjusted as we're going downwind. So an auxiliary person will help with that. And then also sitting on the rail. So we'll have people, when you're sailing upwind, the boat is heeled over. So that means that there'll be an angle on the sail or on the entire boat. And we'll have people sit on the side of the boat to try to flatten the boat out again. So that is also an important job. Those are the things that are going on during the race. We have had a ton of fun this year. There was this past year in 2023, there was, I think, 5 boats in our class. And so regularly we would get third place. Occasionally we would get second place. And once we got first place. This year, there are 14 boats in our class, which is a lot more fun. That means at the start line where everybody is, there's a lot more boats, a lot more action. That means when we're rounding the mark, there's a lot more boats rounding the mark. That means there's a lot more strategy because you need to be placed where you're not going to hit another boat, but you have to know the rules of who has priority and who doesn't have priority. And then when you're going downwind, you're trying to find a best angle to go downwind against other boats. And every boat has its individual handicap. So you're trying to cross the finish line, but your crossing of the finish line doesn't necessarily indicate your placing because every boat has a handicap. So you also have to adjust your time for your handicap to see, hey, if a boat is rated to be a faster boat, you give every other boat time per mile. So that might be giving time, it might be receiving time per mile. It's been happening every Wednesday. It's been a ton of fun. We've got a fun crew. Some of the people that are on our crew that come up every single week, a gentleman named Michael Curella, another Michael that comes as well. Then we have Cayo from here in Oxnard Movement who comes. We have Sierra Perry, who has been coming every single week. Shout out to Sierra. We've got Aaron and Laura, who are also sailors, not from the gym. They're also sailors who often come with us as well. We've got Joe McGrath, a friend from college who comes and sails with us. We had Pratty from the gym up until a few weeks ago. We lost him. He is recovering from an injury. And we've had visitors along the way. So we've had that crew be able to bring friends/family to come along as well. That crew's been super awesome. It takes a big commitment every single week when the wind is good, when the wind isn't good, when the waves are big, when the waves are small, when it feels crazy out in the water. We've kept everybody safe this entire time. We've gotten all sorts of places. We've gotten up to like 6th or 7th place on some bad races. We finished a lot of races in that 3rd place finishing. And then we've got a couple of races that have been so tight that we've gotten 2nd place in, which has also been really, really exciting because our boat is rated quick. So we have to beat everybody else by a large margin in order for us to actually win. This racing is a ton of fun. It's typically between that 5 p.m. hour on a Wednesday afternoon until we get back to the dock anywhere between 7 and 7:30, 7:40. Everyone will help me clean back up the boat, and then we'll all go to dinner where they do an awards ceremony, where they'll do a raffle for everybody who was on the boats and for all the skippers/captains that were on the boats. It's been a ton of fun. There's so many rules, and it's exciting to watch. You can watch it from the harbor, and you can see all the boats out racing. Now, let's talk a little bit about America's Cup, because America's Cup is a whole nother level. So I just looked up some really, really cool information about the America's Cup and kind of when it is, what it includes, who's racing, how they race, things like that. So this is the 37th America's Cup, and it's in Barcelona, Spain. The main event is called the Louis Vuitton America's Cup match, and that's happening between the 12th and the 21st. The defending champion from last year was New Zealand. And then we have some other teams this year. We've got the New Zealand. It's called Emirates Team New Zealand. They're the reigning champions, so they automatically get to race in the final match. They represent the Royal New Zealand Yacht Squadron. They've won the America's Cup several times, including 2021. Their experience using cyclers who pedal to power the boat's system. So that's super cool. We'll talk more about how that works. Then we have Ineos Britannia, which is the where are they coming from? Great Britain. They have not won the cup back to Britain since the origin, the first time of the race's inception. Then we have Luna Rossa, which is Pirelli, and that's Italy. And they're representing, I'm going to butcher this, Circolo della Bella Sicilia. They've been a long-time competitor in the America's Cup, and they were runner-up in the 36th edition. They've got a fun luxury brand, Prada, that is their sponsor. Then we have the NYYC. I'm going to assume that it's the New York Yacht Club, NYYC. American Magic. They're a strong contender. They've been refining technology. I think that they are one of the only boats that cycle. So they all trim cycling, which means they're going to be on bikes to move the sails. They're the only ones that recline in their bikes to move the sails. Then we've got some Red Bull Racing, which is Switzerland. They've been on a hiatus, but now they've partnered with Red Bull, which is a pretty cool partnership. And they won the race in 2003 and 2007, so they want to come back and do some good racing. Then we've got the Orient Express Racing Team, which is from France. They're the newest team, considered relatively inexperienced compared to the other teams, but good to have. So those are the teams. What about these boats? So for reference, when we race in our class, we get anywhere between like 6 to 8 knots of wind, and best case scenario, it's 25 or 30 knots of wind, which is a lot of wind. 30 knots of wind is a lot of wind. And we are getting anywhere between 4 knots of speed, and a knot is very similar, for reference, very similar to a miles per hour. So we're getting about 4 knots of speed up to 6.5 or 7 knots of speed, upwind and downwind. The A class, the Spinnaker class, the faster boats are definitely getting more speed than we are. But these boats are called AC-75s. They're high-performance foiling monohulls. A monohull just means there's one middle piece. You might have seen a catamaran, which has 2 different separate spots. These are monohulls. They are foiling monohulls, which use hydrofoils, enable them to reach speeds up to 4 times the wind speed. So if we are going for reference, if we are going 8 knots of wind, and we might be going 4 knots, so we're going half of the wind speed, these boats are going up to 4 times the wind speed. So with 8 knots of wind, they might be going 32 knots. That's incredible. 30 miles an hour with just the wind. They've got a crew of 8 people. These A75s have been refined and refined and refined every single year. So let's talk about some of the features of the AC-75s. They've got hydrofoils that lift the boats out of the water. So most of the boat is not ever in the water. They're on a foil, reducing drag drastically. That's the biggest factor that's allowing them to increase their speeds, is they're on a foil. These boats can get up to 50 knots. That is insane compared to traditional monohulls. The hydrofoil, like maybe traditional monohull boats, are looking close to that 20 knot speed. 50 knots is a 2.5 times multiplier on that. That is very, very fast. The hydrofoils are what are considered T-foils. The T-foil generates lift as the boat speeds up. So the faster the boat goes, that entire hull lifts out of the water. There's 2 of these. There's one on each side of the boat, and these foils get lifted and lowered. And as they move from side to side, one of them is lifted and one of them is lowered into the water. So if they're on one side, only one of the foils is in the water, and it's being adjusted in real time as the other one is lifted as high as it can, so it's out of the water. So only one foil is in the water. The sails. There is a soft wing sail. Traditional sails are used as cloths, but this soft wing sail is a soft sail that mimics the aerodynamics of an airplane wing. That is the goal of all sails, but this soft wing sail is built completely unique just for these boats. There's something called a twin skin sail that is incredibly efficient, and allowing for like basically no miss of any of the wind. So all of the wind is being used against that wing. So that sail is more or less considered a wing that is out of the water, as that hydrofoil is the opposite side of that wing. There's canting systems. I kind of talked about this before. There's a hydraulic system that allows each of those foils on each side to raise and lower. There has to be a ton of precision with that. So those foils get adjusted in real time as they hit the water, because if it's too high or too low and you go over, that boat might be out of balance and you could flip a boat. You could send the hull back into the water. You could mess a lot of things up, and it could be dangerous at high speeds like that. And then the control systems are absolutely insane. So a lot of these, you're only looking at the outside of the car, but on the inside of the car where all of the crew is sitting, there is dozens of adjustments to be made, depending on the sailing conditions, the wind conditions, the water conditions, where the boat is in comparison to the other boats in the race. The technology is comparable to technology on like Formula One cars, which is insane. Every single thing has been thought of. How can we use the least amount of energy? How can we get the best responsiveness? How can we get the most power output out of every single system? An insane amount of technology go into these boats. And then our crew. So we kind of talked about some of the roles that I have on Wet Wednesdays. What are some of the things that the crew of these boats do? Some of these things you're going to be like, I don't know if even you explaining them helps me understand what's going on. The first person is still the helmsman. The helmsman is the leader of the boat. They're responsible for steering. They've got to focus on positioning the boat accurately for maneuvers, reacting to wind shifts, and watching all the other boats that are in the line as well. The helmsman is working closely to their tactician. So that's the other person. That tactician might be closest to our navigator for us. Our tactician is kind of like our navigator. So they work alongside the helmsman, analyzing wind, looking at the competitor's positioning, making split-second decisions, talking about strategy. They play a critical role. So although they might not be actually executing any maneuvers, they're a lot of the brains of the operation. Then there's a mainsail trimmer, just like there is on our boat. They adjust the mainsail to maximize efficiency. You're constantly adjusting the mainsail to maintain optimal shape. On our boat, likely once the mainsail has been adjusted on a course, it stays. On America's Cup's boats, they're likely adjusting that mainsail constantly, in and out, in and out, in and out. We've got a flight controller. The flight controller operates the hydrofoils, and they make sure that the boat is stable and lifted out of the water. This is one of the most technically demanding spots. Even like tiny little miscalculations in how high or how low those wings get put in can have massive consequences in boat speed, in direction, in where hole position is in the waters. Do we hit a massive dip in the hole? Do we trim and come through the wind and have the boat stay out of the water the entire time? Then we've got the foil trimmers. There's actually two people for this, and they're responsible for controlling those foils and maintaining the balance. They work closely with the flight controller. So just like the tactician is kind of working with the helmsman, the foil trimmers are working with the flight controller to make sure that their adjustments are exactly what the flight controller wants. And then we've got the grinders. The grinders, there's two, maybe three people. These are the people that operate the boat's hydraulics systems by powering grinding pedestals to provide the trim to the sails. So in most of the America's Cup's boats, they have shifted to cycling. So grinding used to be done with your arms. You can almost think of it like a well pump. So if you think of a well pump that you're pumping up and down to move something, a grinder would typically use both of their hands like a hand bicycle. I'll show that motion really quick. They've come to kind of figure out, hey, if we're going to do that cycling motion to have enough power and energy to move the sails in and out, we might as use way bigger muscles, our legs, and set ourselves on bikes to do that trimming. So a lot of the boats now have grinders that sit on cycles, which is basically a bike that doesn't move, to trim the sails. All of these people have to work together in an insane amount of like pressure. Safety, moving at 30 plus knots only under wind power is kind of insane. It's a ton of fun to watch. Obviously, just like most races, there's races that are much closer and there's races that are much further apart. So this week, I kind of want to encourage you to go and check out some of the America's Cup. YouTube.com, search up America's Cup 2024. Watch some of these races. They run just about 20 minutes, 25 minutes maybe. They're a ton of fun to watch. If sailing is something that you have always wanted to get into or you're interested in, although sailing season is coming to a close for the year, it opens back up in April of next year, and there will be a lot of racing that is happening. If that is something that you are interested in and using your fitness for, I would love to have a conversation with you. Maybe you can crew with me next year, or maybe you can crew on somebody else's boat, or you can come along for a sail and an experience and see how it is. That's it for me this week. Those are some fun ways to keep yourself moving. That hypes me up, getting to talk about some sailing stuff, something that I'm super passionate about. Rate us, subscribe. If you've got any fun sailing stories, I want to hear about them. I absolutely love it. Send me a DM to my Instagram or send me an email, kolby@oxstarmovement.com. Or if I see you on a regular basis, stop me. Tell me that you want to tell me a story about sailing. I'd love to hear about it. Until next week, we will see you guys later.